Hello. In today's video, I'm going to do just some refactoring, nothing more. So in the previous video, I had set up dependency injection. I had created this class TCP server. I was injecting it into my main class and calling the start server method there. Now the start server method, in this method, I want to handle everything related to this server socket and sockets. Basically, this TCP server class is going to be responsible for handling my TCP connections. So I'll move everything related to sockets there, like so. And I can remove this from here. And this handle client method is also required there. So I'll copy it there. And this method will go actually in my RESP serializer. So I'm not moving it right now. I'll move it later. Let me see if my current refactoring is working fine or not. It's not required there. So now in my TCP server, I have the start server. The start server creates a server socket. And while true, it keeps listening for new socket connections. And as soon as we get a socket connection, we call the handle client method on that socket on a separate thread. In my handle client, uh, I get the input stream, I get the output stream, and I keep reading line by line. What I also need to do is while client socket dot is connected, I'm going to be reading buffers out of it. Why I'm not working with the scanner is we don't know what the input is. The input will keep on changing, and it's not necessary I'm going to keep getting lines. Actually, I don't know why if scanner will work or not. It probably could, but previously I've worked with buffers, so I'm using buffers, byte buffers, and what that would look like is I'm going to get a buffer from my socket, and it's going to be a byte array, and I need to know the size of the buffer, and my client socket has that. Client socket dot get receive buffer size, yeah, that's it. And we can read from the input stream into this buffer, like so. Read into the buffer, and this read method returns how many bytes were read. Now all these input stream, output stream, client socket, all these should be abstracted into a class. I'll do it. I'll do that as well. And if bytes read is greater than 0, we read something into the buffer. Okay, here we can do the bytes parsing into strings. Before doing that, let's abstract these input stream, output stream, and the client socket into a separate class. So to do that, I'll create a class called client, and it will be in my, does it need to be in my component folder? I'll just keep it in my components package. I'll call it client. So now my client is going to have a socket. Public socket socket, and it is going to have an input stream. It's also going to have an output stream, and let's give it an ID as well. Public int ID, and let's create some constructor. I do not have Lombok. Leave Lombok. I'll create constructors for it. Public client is going to take a socket. It will take an input stream. It will take an output stream, and that's it for now. This dot socket is equals to socket. This dot input stream is equals to input stream, and this dot output stream is equals to output stream. And let's create a let's pass it an ID as well. I'm not sure if this ID is going to be used or not. Just keeping it. And what we should do is I should abstract this read into this client as well, reading from the input stream. Let's see about that later. Not required for now. So whenever I'm connecting, whenever I connect, I get this socket, and let's create the client object here. Client is equals to new client. It's going to take a final client socket, and I'm going to need the input and output streams. Okay. Control X. So I'm not supposed to have an ID. I'll leave the ID out for now. Or should I give it an ID? But what will my ID be? So whenever we connect, I'll increase the ID and I'll send it down. So that's my client. Now my handle client used to take a client socket. Sorry, it used to take a socket. I'll change it to take a client instead. And I'll pass the client down to it. And what I can do is client dot socket is connected, and client dot input stream client socket. Okay, client dot socket, and input stream will be client dot input stream. Okay, client dot input stream. So that's my client class for now. And what else do we need here? Okay, so I am reading the bytes out, and now I want to do some parsing on it. So I'm not going to be using this scanner. I'll comment this for now. And if I have read some bytes, I want to do some parsing. Okay, so I'll write that parsing related methods in my RESP serializer. So whenever I receive a string, whenever I receive a byte array, okay. So my RESP commands are actually arrays. I get the command followed by the data, like set key value and get key. So actually whatever I receive by the Redis CLI is an array, and I'm reading it in byte format, and I'll send it down to my RESP serializer. So my RESP serializer needs to have a method to handle byte arrays, and they will return a array or a list of strings. Okay, I'll call it deserialize. It'll take a byte array, which is a command, and let's just do some string manipulation here. New string. UTF-8 format. I'm reading string and UTF-8 format, and I'll also create a character array out of it. Okay, so I'm looking at my old code, and even if we receive a single command, the tests that CodeCrafters have written for us are written so that my byte array will have multiple commands. So there won't be a single string, there will be a string array because I'm receiving multiple commands at once. So that's why I have a list of string arrays. Each string will be a command, and sorry, each a string array is a command like set key value. That's one string array. That's what I'm going to be returning. My command will look like something set key value. But how code crafters have written tests are that we don't receive just one command, we receive multiple commands at once. So not just this, we'll be receiving something like so. It's a 2D array. I'm receiving multiple commands, and I'm deserializing it such that each command will be a string array, and there will be multiple commands. That's why I hope you understand why it's a two-dimensional data structure, not a single-dimensional data structure. Okay, and so I need to return something, right? Call it result, and we need to return this result. So we'll do it character by character. Okay, so I need an index, and while I less than data dot length. So since the Redis CLI sends us arrays, and in a RESP serialization protocol, an array begins with a star. I'm checking if the current character is a star. If it is, we know we have an array. Sorry, we have an array, and the star is followed by the length of the array. Let's call that. Now the array length can be many characters long, so I'll be reading that character by character as well. I have read one character, so I'm increasing the pointer because I need to read the next character. And while I is less than data air dot length and character dot is digit data arr of I'll append it to my array length. This is equals to data arr of I, and I need to do I plus plus. After when this while loop ends, I'll have whatever the length of my array is in this array length, and array length then is followed by a slash r slash n. What my string looks like, it will look something like slash r slash n, and then whatever the content of my array is. If it's a string, it should be, I don't remember exactly, I'll have to look up the documentation. Let's say it's a string of length 2, it can be high, or it can be a string of length 3 and then it can be 3 set, and then again it will be followed by slash r slash n. So right now my I pointer should be right here. Go right here after this while loop. So now I need to do a I plus is equals to 2 because I need to go 2 characters ahead, and I need to go 2 characters ahead, and if the next character is again a star, that means we received a 2D array from the CodeCrafters test, which we will do in future. I'm just handling it right away. It's a nested command. It stumped me for a long time, and I spent a lot of time debugging what the issue was. Basically, the issue was that we were receiving nested commands from the CodeCrafters. So I'm handling it right away for you. So So my array length was a string which had only digits. So now I'm parsing it into integer, and I'm running a loop from 0 to that length, because we are going to have that many commands in my byte array, and we need to get the length of the nested array, and it will basically be the same logic, but we need to do it here. And because we have read a star here, I need to increment my I pointer, and while again I is less than data array dot length, and character dot is digit, while the next letter is a digit, I'll do a data of I. I'll append it to my nested length, data array of I, like so, and I'll increment I. Again, I'll have a slash r slash n that needs to be handled like so. So now I know the length of the nested array. So it's going to be what I'm going to append to this result. To add to this result is a string array, so I'm creating that string array here, and we now know the length of that string is going to be integer dot parse int nested length. I'll call it subarray. Now I need to read the actual command words from my buffer array, and let's do that in another method. So my command can be broken down into parts like set key value, while calling set apart, key apart, value apart. So they are part of the same command. What I can do is I'll create a method that will read those command parts or subparts from the data that I'm sending it I down because I need to know where I am in the character array, and I'll put those parts into my subarray, and it will return after reading the command where my I pointer is going to be. And after that I can add to my result the subarray. Now what if I received was not an array? So if it is not a nested command that I'm receiving from CodeCrafters, it's just going to be single command. What I can do is I can do this, and instead of nested length, it's going to be array.length. This will make more sense to you. once I show you what is the format of data I'm receiving, if you actually want to understand that, you need to go through Redis documentation and understand what the RESP serialization protocol is. Basically, in this else case, I'm handling the case where I'm just receiving a single command from the Redis CLI. And if it's a single command, it's going to look something like so. It's an array of length 3, and in each element, I need to specify the length of each element. It's a star hash 3 if hash represents a string. I don't remember. I'll look that up in the documentation as we go. And if it's going to be a string of length 3, then it's going to be followed by a slash r slash n. Then again a string of length 3 key followed by slash r slash n, and then another string of length 5 value, like so. Now if I were receiving multiple of these, let's say I receive two of these, this and this, so it's basically an array of multiple commands. So I need to specify that I'm receiving an array, and that can be specified by star 2 because the star represents an array in RESP serialization protocol. So yeah, so that case is being handled in my if statement above, and the case of a single here, and the case of a single string, a single command is being handled here. All right. So now let's create this get parts method. So it's just going to return an integer. Let's create it here. It's going to receive a character array, an integer, and a string array to append the commands to. It's going to be a char array. It's just going to return the I after all the processing, and I need to iterate on my character array while I is less than data r dot length, and okay, so I know the length of my subarray because I created the subarray out of it. So I know the command that's going to follow is going to be as long as the length of this string array. So let's create another pointer that will be less than subarray dot length, because that how many words are going to be in my command. And okay, so if data array of I is equal to okay, so what does the RESP serialization protocol say? I'll show that to you. RESP serialization protocol So bulk strings are represented by a dollar. That's why I'm using a dollar here. What a bulk string is and how it differs from a simple string is very simple. So simple strings are just that the length of the string is not encoded whatsoever, only the data followed by slash r slash n, because it's not going to be used in a complex data structure. If we are going to use a string in a complex data structure, we need to encode the length of the string as well. So that's what a string looks like. In RESP, it's a dollar followed by the length of the string, followed by slash r slash n, followed by the data, followed by slash r slash n again. So if we have a dollar, then we know we are working with a bulk string. So we need to handle all those cases here actually. It's a bulk string, and since I read a character, I need to increment my I. And now I need to read whatever the length of the string is, right? Because as we saw, my bulk string looks something like so. Bulk string looks like this. So I've read the dollar already. Now I need to read the length. And we have been reading the length all before. We have read the length of arrays, and it's going to be the same logic again. String, my part length is going to be, okay, file I is then data r dot length and character dot is digit, then I plus plus. This plus is equals to is handling the slash r slash n, and sorry, and now I'm going to read the actual value. Okay, so while again I is less than data r dot length, let's run a loop on parts length. So for integer k equal to 0, k is less than integer dot percent part length k plus plus part plus is equals to data r of I plus plus. Yeah, that should do it. And then I'm going to see another slash r slash n, so I'm going to increment I plus is equals to 2. And then I can add it to my subarray. Subarray of j plus plus is equals to part. All right. And it's returning the I back. So this should have read all the, I'm looping on the subarray. This should have read all the parts into my subarray. Okay, that should do it. Let's inject it into my TCP server. And oh, it's already injected. Yeah, RESP serializer. Let's call the deserialize method here. Deserialize on buffer. Why is it throwing an array? Non-static. Yeah. And what does deserialize? It returns a list of string array. So let's print the output and see what we are getting. It should be working fine. If not, we'll do some debugging. So for string array s in result, I'll print a new line. Then for string ss in s, I'll print ss plus an empty space. And why is it throwing an error? Class or interface expected. So where is this being closed? It's been closed here. This is the class. Okay, I need to comment this as well. Got it. Let's keep it commented for now, and let's see if my serializer is working fine or not. So deserializer. Okay, so let's see the logs here. My test is being run. It'll show me the logs. So built successfully. Bro, why is it so slow? Okay, so sent bytes. Did I not print anything? Why didn't I print anything? See, I'm receiving something like this. And I don't see any output. Why don't I see output? Am I not getting control here? Let's go to my code. Okay. I'll add some random lines here. Let's see if I see that in my output console. Okay, so I see this, but I don't see the output from this. Did I not read anything from my buffer? Bytes read. So I did read 35 bytes. So if I did read 35 bytes, that's why we need integration tests for it. I'll definitely do that in the next video because I need to set a debugger and see what I'm getting here but I can't do that. So I need some integration tests. I definitely will write some integration tests. Okay, so Control is working fine here. What's the length of result here? Let's comment it out. Or I can just remove it. So if the length of that array list is 0, I know my deserialize method is not working as expected. Yeah, I didn't receive anything there. So if bytes read was 35 and it's definitely greater than 0, so I'm getting control here. But my deserialize method it's not returning. So somewhere I'm not increasing I. Now I need to see where am I not increasing I. So in my deserialize method, let's print I. Because I imagine this loop is never breaking. I'll just print I. So I didn't get control here. That seems odd because my byte thread is definitely greater than 0. So it's 38. Control reached there, but this didn't work. So this definitely didn't work because I don't see this here. Let's see what am I doing wrong. Nothing was printed. Is my control even reaching there? Control reach here. X2. I think I can remove logs from my TCP server. Doesn't matter, this is working fine. I'll put all of it in a try catch. Okay, so I did some debugging on my own. The issue was this method was a static method, and this dependency that was injected was also static. That's why my control was not reaching into this method. It was static because I copied this method from my main class into this class while refactoring. And my buffer array ends with a null character, and that needs to be handled explicitly. If not, we will end up in an infinite loop because I will simply not increment because I is not equal to star and I is not equal to any other character that we are handling. It's a null character and needs to be handled explicitly. And this will only be the case when I will be equal to data air dot length, will be less than data air dot length, and we can simply break out or increment I. So, and it all seems to be working fine. Now we can also print I, and I can show you that it's equal to or just one less than data air dot length here. And I'll remove that here and I'll keep bring it here. I don't know what this output is. Okay, so as you see, I is equal to 41 and data air dot length is also equal to 41. And when these both are equal, I'm breaking out of the loop. And I'm also printing current, but I'm not seeing anything in my logs because it's a null byte. So that needs to be handled explicitly. And my program printed set strawberry mango, and this is the key, this is the value. So we are able to deserialize the Redis CLI command into an array of string, and it's being consoled to the log here. So my RESP serializer seems to be working fine, and we did some refactoring in this video. In the next video, maybe I'll do some integration testing, or we'll actually go ahead with solving some stages. So see you in the next one.